Welcome to Focus Europe Talks. Our guest today is Brando Benifei, Italian MEP, member of the European Parliament, representing Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament and the center-left Democratic Party in Italy. You are the chair of the delegation for the relations of the US, and also you used to be the rapporteur for the AI Act. Yes? Is it true?
Yes, absolutely. I'm still also chairing the implementation working group for the AI Act, so I'm following the implementation of the law.
So welcome. We are so happy to have you in our podcast. And I would like to go a little bit deeper into this digital affairs and AI affairs. So according to the 2024 Draghi report, there was a warning that the EU was structurally reliant on non-EU providers for more than 80% of its digital products, services and infrastructure. Now we are almost 2 years later, and what Europe has done so far to reduce this dependence on the US, but also Chinese technologies and the leadership, especially in terms of technology, digital technology.
The EU is very late on this, and it has become dependent on non-EU technologies for a long time. And now, finally, things are moving, but we need to accelerate. We see that the EU has presented a tech sovereignty package to increase the resilience of our digital sovereignty in Europe by favoring European technologies, European companies, for example, in the cloud and AI, and in securing a better supply chain for chips. And this is something where we need to see more capacity of the EU to not be blackmailed, not be dependent from external providers. It could be US, but also China. And finally, the European Commission is moving in that direction, so to be sure that European money will be used to support European sovereignty and not increase dependencies.
Okay, so still what the ESN, Europe of Sovereign Nations, MEP said during the European Parliament's plenary session, America innovates while EU regulates, it's still true.
Well, those MEPs come from a group that has problematic ties both with the MAGAs of US and with Putin's Russia. And one of the members of AfD was caught meddling with the Chinese. So they are the most dependent in terms of they are selling our sovereignty. These are those that say they are the sovereign nations, but they are against the European sovereignty and they are selling us away. So I don't take very much seriously what they say, to be honest. But the point is that the EU, if it wants to innovate, it needs to invest more together and not follow the ideas of these extreme right populists that want Europe to be weak and divided because they get the money from those that want us to be divided and wants to buy us piece by piece. So, in fact, the EU is still too fragmented and still spends its money in a way that is not efficient. And also, we have a non-integrated financial market to support the development of new AI businesses. In fact, this is what I get from the AI startups. Every time they don't care about the rules. The rules are those things that are mostly lamented by the big companies from outside the EU. They want, yes, a simplification, but their problem is to not have the access to the capital, to the money. So this is the thing that we need to overcome, because today in Europe, unfortunately, a lot of our savings are used, in fact, to support American companies through investment funds instead of supporting European innovation.
Okay, so how to ensure this access to the capital?
We need an integrated financial market and stop having our governments stopping this integration and having each member state today keeping its own financial market closed in a way so that it's easier in a very large number of cases to invest in US from a European country than investing in a financial instrument in another European country. This is
Probably easier said than done.
yes, but it's simply a matter of political will. If you only go in a short-termism approach by following just the pressure of each election, you will never solve anything. We need a medium-term approach that only the European common decisions can ensure.
Okay,
And if-
practically, how to do that? How to ensure the common financial capital and equity market to support our real innovativeness?
overcome the barriers that make it difficult to invest from one country to another, to have even today rules about our companies that prevent this kind of investment, or for example, when you have pension funds that do not invest are prohibited from investing in venture capital. This is a lot of different issues where you see, luckily, some governments are finally saying it, but there are still some others that do not want to do it because they have this stupid idea of national sovereignty that is in fact killing our sovereignty, because we end up being bought by Americans and Chinese. But sometimes you think they might want that because they simply do not move. And this topic has been debated for 20 years. So it's crazy. And unfortunately, we do not have any other option because it's not that we can do something else. So we need to advance in this. And also, we need to accelerate on the access to computational capacity. The AI factories, the AI gigafactories are initiatives dealing with this, but we need to accelerate on it.
Okay, we have, for example, the European Inc. Plans to become reality, and also the tech sovereignty package that you mentioned. Does it have anything to do with actual sovereignty?
Well, the EU Inc. is a good mean to try to allow companies to operate in the single market in all the 27 member states easily, not to have to repeat the procedures and be blocked by bureaucracy. I have to tell you that when I went some months ago to Silicon Valley in US, where there are European companies that moved there, they have told me, please go on with the 28 regime, the so-called EU Inc., because it will help us go back to Europe and use Europe as our main market instead of the American one, like we do today, even if we are Europeans. So this is something that is awaited for and will be very important.
You were mentioning the problem of fragmentation and this talk about, of especially far-right parties, about national sovereignty and its importance. However, the reality is, for the time being, that our voters, are at home in our nation states. So how to solve this conundrum?
Well, it's important to work in a way that allows for the European interest to be the interest of all citizens and of all countries. This means that we find compromises, but also we do not stop in front of divisions, but rather we find solutions together and we overcome our difficulties in decision making. For example, we still have the veto for certain decisions on foreign policy, on fiscal policy. We are not able to decide all together at the same time, the 27 member states. I think we should also allow for some member states to do more together and follow what the public opinions of their countries are saying, because we have many countries where people would like Europe to do more together on certain areas. You can see that by the Eurobarometer polling. So we should be able to integrate more where our people want, like in a very simple way to show that if we want to compete with China, with US, we need to be more like them in terms of being unified, because today Europe is still too divided.
AI is, as you know well, not only about EU sovereignty, not only about innovativeness and competitiveness, but it's about security. And also Kremlin knows that well, and it is adapting its information warfare. So it has this information warfare has evolved from human-driven troll farms to campaigns powered by the generative AI. What to do about this aspect?
So we need to apply the rules that we approved, the AI Act that, for example, provides for transparency on the synthetic origin of AI content so that we can identify deepfakes, disinformation, etc. This is very important. And then we can also decide to finally have our own cybersecurity structures to be more resilient, because we have seen, unfortunately, that if we rely on others, for example, on the case of anthropic systems that Trump stopped from being used in the EU, we risk being left without the right technologies. And today, the Russian interference through cybersecurity threats and hybrid attacks is increasing. It comes also from other parts of the world. We need to be ready. That's why we've been discussing this also in the plenary in these days while I'm recording our conversation. But as I said in the plenary, we need to have less fragmentation and more resources, because otherwise we only make a plan, but then we rely on member states to act, and sometimes they do not act because, to be honest, it's not always obvious to all states how important cybersecurity is in terms of being an investment. So we need
You mean more sources from the new multi-annual financial framework?
Yes, absolutely. I think we need to invest more. Well, I think we need more money. I mean, we need some more billions of euros to be invested in cybersecurity, because I think that today, otherwise, we have too much difference between those member states that are on their own already investing and others that are lagging behind too much. But if they lag behind too much, this will become a liability for all Europe. And so I think it's in our interest.
Brando Benifei, thank you so much for this discussion.
Thank you very much.